Okay, welcome back to Court and Soul. Today's guest is a two-time NBA champ, an NBA three-point specialist, and someone who stood for more than just what happened between the lines. From the championship run with the Bulls in 91 and 92 to carving out a life of purpose beyond the league, Craig Hodges represents what it means to be more than an athlete. Today, we're talking about identity, transition, legacy, and who you become when the game no longer defines you. Welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Sister, I appreciate it. Blessings on blessings.
Always, always. The first question I do want to ask is when you think back to the championship years versus today, what part of Craig Hodges never changed and what had to?
First of all, thank you for the invite. For me, when I look at it, it's for me, it's my upbringing. I was part of the civil rights movement growing up, and it was always important to be able to articulate your position. So for me, it was always a thing where, we know the term student athlete, but it was fostered in me in my family. It was one of those things where all my uncles were sportsmen. My granddad was the park director, so sports was always in my life. But my aunts and my sister, they made sure that I was reading and writing. So it was always a thing that that was a major core, and the sports was always secondary. That it was always taught to me that, you have to be able to be a great student before so someone can see you play. So it was one of those things that during the run of, whether it was being recruited for high school or whatever, it was always in my mind that I have to be thinking about something. I have to be thinking about something that's bigger than the sport. And my granddad always, he used to sit me down and tell me to look at the newspaper. And I would bring him the newspaper in the morning. And one day he sat me down and he said, because my name was in the newspaper that day and I was excited about it. And he said, take a look at the newspaper, start at the beginning and go to the end, and you'll see where sports is. Sports is not at the beginning. You want to make sure that the news that you make is on the front page and not in the sports page. So from that point on, it became a thing where you want to be serious about, you want to be serious about life and where you want to take yourself, but at the same time, you want to enjoy it. And I think that's the part where student athleticism, for me, it was basketball was somewhat of a release from what was going on from societal end, but at the same time, knowing that it was it was all part of the thread of the fabric of the society. So being able to have a part on the court and then play a role in what's going on societal wise in your community was critical, and it was put into me early.
And I think that's important. I think a piece you touched on that it's still very relevant today is the whole student athlete. And a lot of kids are going out there thinking this ball is life mentality. And as much as basketball can bring so many great things in, being a student, being able to do those things like reading and writing.
And I think one of the biggest things that's going on now is with the advent of social media. So many young student athletes are so concerned about how many followers, and it's a transactional thing now where I tell people, when you look at where sports is right now, college is pro and high school is semi-pro, and that, everybody is worried about getting a bag and how big can I get my bag to be? How soon can I get my bag, as opposed to what are the nuts and bolts of being? What is it that's going to make you not only a critical thinker, but value-wise? What is your value to a college program? What is your value to your high school program? What is your value to your community? Do you have an impact other than being able to run fast, jump high, shoot a basketball? What is your impact going to be when those skills aren't available anymore? And I think that's one of the biggest 100%. Things that need to be harped to younger athletes, especially in this thing right now. It's when I go to AAU tournament and stuff like that, and I see how much the game is overweighing life. And like you say, the whole term ball is life is something that when we look back in the day, it was so many, we played at the park. So many times you would hear people talk about how important their game was compared to every life. You hear a brother say, man, I'd rather you talk about my game before you talk about my mama. And there's stuff like that, is that, the game has become so big and monumental in so many of these young folks' lives that they don't see, they don't see the fruits of what life can bring from the game, as opposed to game being the ends of the means to an end.
I think you hit it on the head right there. So during the height of the Bulls run, did you feel like basketball was what you did or who you were?
I felt like, once again, I was blessed to have great mentors. So when I was at Long Beach State, it was taught to me that, basketball is a tool and that it's a device to go in and mine, use the NBA or whatever you do basketball wise, use it almost like a gold mine. Go in and get the resources that you can and be able to bring it back to your community and do what you can to foster this next generation where they're thinking about something. So for me, it was never really a thing of, and then once again, I never won anything until I won a world championship with the Bulls. So going through the whole thing, you could never tell me in all those years before that I wasn't going to win a championship, because that was what you have to put in your mind to be able to be the best that you can be. But within the totality of it is when you're actually in that moment, you're so focused on making sure that you prepare from the end of us making sure that we win. But at the same time, probably since I was 19 years old, year at Long Beach probably is when I became focused and being able to balance and knowing that basketball was connected to what I did off the court, and that what I did off the court was connected to basketball. So I would tell people during my college career, the more I read about my history, the better player I became. And it was a mental, and some stuff we put into our minds just to keep us going, but at the same time, it was a mindset that I felt that from a historical standpoint, the history that I had in me as a basketball player compared to a brother that I was playing across from, who didn't have no knowledge of self, no knowledge of history, I felt that the ancestral spirit in me was going to take me a little bit farther than whoever we played against. And the same thing happened when Detroit beat us in Chicago, when Detroit was beating us like a rug, and we were crying like babies. And after they beat us the last time, I told myself that we needed ancestral help. So the following season, every playoff game, I wore a dashiki. So it became a thing that I told the fellas, man, we ain't got enough heart. We need the ancestors to bolster us. And, everybody thought it was, that's Hodge being Hodge. But I was serious about it. So, and players and organizations being ritualistic when you win. When I wore the dashiki and we won the first time, from that point on, it was Hodge, you wearing the dashiki? Yeah, man, I got these for every game. So we're good to go. We're good to go.
I'm so sorry. It keeps cutting in and out.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like we're losing good stuff.
Okay. I don't know.
Sure. Is it coming up choppy for me when I'm talking to you at all? Like, is it cutting in and out?
No, when you're coming through clear.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Is this a spot in the house that usually? Yeah, does it look
when I'm talking?
Does yours look okay? So maybe it's just my screen. Okay, well, we'll keep going, and because you're spitting out bars right now, and I really think this is really beneficial.
Where are you guys at in Canada?
I'm in yes, I'm in Canada.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's okay now. I don't know. Maybe it's just hating on you anytime you're trying to give some bars.
Where we are in this day and time, there's no telling who's listening either.
But I really liked how you're talking about like the spiritual ancestors, because I feel like not enough players have purpose where they have something that they're working towards. Like when you have a spiritual guide, that's something that can light a flame inside you when things are just not going your way in a game.
Right. And I think there too is when we look, especially in America, when we look at African American ball players compared to players who come from overseas, who have a knowledge of self, a knowledge of family, a knowledge of history, it's a certain confidence and I'm not going to say cockiness that you have, but it's a certain base that you have that you can always know that if this doesn't go well, I can always go home and do what I'm capable of doing there. We already have a historical relevance there. And I think that's the part in studying at Long Beach State, one of the things that was great, the realization that in a lot of the mental arts that we go through as Black people, our historical relevance can bring us through a lot of that. And so one of the things that I promote to young athletes is, pick up a book about your history, study something about Mansa Musa, study something that's not in your normal curriculum, because the normal curriculum is part of the web. And I call it the web of deceit, that it traps you in so many different ways. And, when I look at the simplicity of the 60s, the simplicity of what was going on in the movement, it was simple as this. You are segregated. So you have no other choice than to work with your people. Where now we are so enveloped into this Americana thing that the upward mobility has been so projected to us that I can be upwardly mobile. And when we look at what upward mobility means within the societal context, it is you have to separate yourself from your folks in order to succeed. Look at the city of Chicago. You look at all the great names that come out of the city of Chicago. None of them get their game off here in the city. They have to leave Chicago and come back, whether it be Jennifer Hudson, Common, myself. When you look at the major players, they have to leave Chicago, but then you stop and you think about, and this is what I tell people all the time, how important Chicago is to the world. When you look at perhaps the three greatest names in Black America, you're talking about Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, and Barack Obama. So the question becomes is why did their handlers send them to Chicago to get their start? Okay. And people don't realize that when I went away to school from Chicago to Long Beach State and studied the movement, how important those who were movers and leaders in the movement in the 60s and 70s, how important they looked to Chicago for energy. And I tell people that, the city of Chicago is critical to what's going on the planet right now, and that it always has been a focal point of politics, economics. Probably every major corporation in the world has an office space in the city of Chicago because it's the middle of the country. And it has an energy and a vibration that's different than any place on the face of the earth, for real.
That I feel like that can go in many directions right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love to read, and yes. I have a lot of I'm Lebanese, so I have a West Indian background, and there's a lot of stuff going there. So I think growing up, same as you, we were informed. We have a connection to our homeland, even though half the time it's dangerous for us to go back there. So this is very me. Yeah, it's very resonating for me, these type of conversations, because even history with us growing up, like Canadian history, everything that I learned when we were younger has now been redacted because this claim of coming to this land as like a new land, nobody was here, and now we're learning about indigenous schools and what they did and how they ripped away their families, and I was like we were brainwashed, and it's crazy.
And the systematic part of it is so profound. And the crazy part is, you have to give credit to them to be able to put a system like that together. Genius. To be able to say, and wickedly wise. You know what I'm saying? To be able to have an energy that you're going to say, okay, if we do this, this will be the reaction. And that's what I tell people about, growing up in the projects, that this was a scientific project by those social scientists to see how people will react being stacked on top of one another. How would, on the 17th floor of Cabrini Green's project in Chicago, what type of connection do you have to the soil? How grounded are you? How can it be that, your child is out at 5:30 at night and you need them and you got to holler downstairs from 17 floors up? So it's a whole dynamic. And it's been a whole, and for me, it's been a blessing to have had a family that allowed me to be a free thinker and not push any necessary, whether religion. My family Baptist, so it's been a spiritual vibration throughout, but it was never pressed upon me. It was always, we want you to search and find it on your own. And if you have questions, and that was the cool part for my family. I could always ask questions, man. I was never muzzled. I was never, but I also saw in the growth pattern that on Sunday at dinner, you couldn't sit at the kitchen table unless you had a serious mindset. So you couldn't come to the kitchen table talking frivolous, because at our kitchen table, it was the politics of the day, what's going on societal wise. And from the athlete end is, what athletes should I be looking at? Jim Brown, Arthur Ashe. Those were the two main focus for me growing up as athletes, that Muhammad Ali, of course, that were for me to look at as models of, should you get a chance to reach the level that those brothers have, make sure you carry yourself in such a way that characterizes what you're worth and what your value is to not only your people, but to yourself. And that, try not to allow yourself to be pimps. and that's where America is right now. We've exploited not only the earth and the planet, but we've exploited the people. And I think now the planet is going in a direction where it's truly coming back to we the people all over the globe.
Yeah, it's always going to come back for the people, no matter what. That's how nature's going to work.
Absolutely.
So this is fantastic. So when the NBA shifted for you, I feel like I know where you're going to answer, but was it harder stepping away from the court, like physically playing ball and, enjoying that aspect, or stepping away from the locker room, like the brotherhood?
For me, it's practice. It was practice. It was, practice was so much cooler than games to me. The game was the game, but, my last 4 years, man, and being able to guard Michael Jordan every day, you know what I'm saying? Knowing that the things that he would do in games, that you have a certain portion in those movements that he was making based on what we did in practice the other day. To me, I missed practice. I missed the bus. I missed that part of it more than the actual, you know what I'm saying? It was more to me, and then once that happened, once I saw that I wasn't going to be able to play within that realm again, it wasn't like I couldn't play anymore. So I would play against my sons and they boys, you know what I'm saying? So it was always, basketball is a game. It's a playground game. So you can always play, but you want to, at that point, you want to see where your skills match up, because you've been a pro for the last 10 years, and going over to Italy wasn't the same. You know where you are, you're a world champion, and you've been in that realm, and that's where you should be. But at the same time, understanding that is their corporation. That is their entity. They have a right to tell me they don't want me. Okay. And I have to be willing to accept that. And now in acceptance of that, it doesn't have to necessarily mean my life stops at basketball. I've cheated. The number of children that I've taught since I've been away from the game is crazy, so I never not did the basketball in the manner that it presents itself. So when the Bulls released me and I wasn't able to play anymore, I was working with my sons, getting them ready, and their boys, you know what I'm saying? And right now I'm working with, high school and college players who are trying to get to that level, and give them the information and the skill drills that are necessary to get you where you need to go. And, it's one thing to see, and I think that's what happens to us, is that we take the entities of Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA as the only game. That now we stop when we look at Pee Wee football, Little League Baseball. The game is the game. You know what I'm saying? And you can play this game as long as you want to, but once again, does it have to be under their guise? This is what is official basketball. Okay, we can. And the funny part where we used to laugh about the NBA, when we would say we were world champions and we only playing in America. You know what I'm saying? So little stuff like that shows the audacity, the hubris, the arrogance that we have as a nation, that everything else is secondary, subsidiary to who we are. And that has been such a, it's been a power grab, And at the same time, it's been a propaganda spill. And so many people have fallen for it. And so many of our own citizens have fallen for it. That we think that we're better than somebody else, that we think that we are that exceptional city on the hill. That's been going on a long, long time. It never was in reality when you think about, you know, the actual signing of the Constitution, and my people were serving tea and crumpets. So don't give me that thing about where we are in the equality of America. Yeah, okay. We understand it for what it is.
You answer that like a true competitor. And exactly what you're saying. That mentality is for them to justify their actions by any means.
Absolutely.
By
And that,
that
yeah,
in
go ahead.
people, exactly what it is.
Yeah, and you know, the whole you know, and I look at, when we look at all of, wherever you're at in America, wherever you're at on the planet, the institutional systematic of it has always been in place, and that there's always been a certain upper echelon of elite people that control it. And whether we see it for what it is or not, or are we playing and see, and that's the part where they teach us a rugged individualism, that the capitalistic mindset, you are an individual, but remember, you're part of the collective. It's a community. It's a community when we say we want it to be a community, but it's individual when you're trying to get paid. So the how do I get into this thing and be able to be over here, but over here, be over. So the whole thing is, you know, right now, so many people are focused on the economics. How do I make sure that I get my bag, and my bag has to be such a level that I can get me this, I can get me that, I can get these things, not realizing that the whole control mechanism, you have no control. You know what I'm saying? And that, you know, and that's one of the things that I'm talking to my people now, is how much does our vote matter? How much does, you know, we right now we're stripping legislation for civil, we're stripping voting rights legislation. Come on, man, how long do we have to be here and still get our rights legislated? How long? How long are we going to be under a Voting Rights Act that only can cut us out? Doesn't make sense to me. And at some point in time, I'm asking everybody right now, is it feasible for me to continue to tell my young Black men to register to vote when I know that under this system, first thing we're taught within the civics of American history, and I was a lover of America like you, and studying, and you fall for the whole gamut of Americana, the Americana pie. I ate it full. I know it better than anybody in America. But when you get to that level and you see, like, man, that's not what the game is. The game has really been one of you giving me this to bite upon, when you know that it's only going to make me servile to you. It's only going to make me a servant within the system, and I'm not going to be able to elevate and have a generational wealth capacity for my children based upon my energy that I put out. My energy is being usurped by a higher power, whether it be NBA, Major League Baseball, whatever. But then we look at, on a political level, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. Okay, but where's your money coming from? And everybody, where's the money coming from? Who is the foundational to give you that, oh, I have a war chest to be able to do this. I have a war chest. Come on, man. And that's the part where I'm asking my people, hey, let's get on education and economics. And then we can decide who are we going to run for office. And it doesn't, and I'm of the mindset that, hey, wait up. Why do we have to be part of a Democrat or Republican? Why can't I just be Craig and I can vote for who I want to vote for, and I'm not an independent? So don't put me in that category. Don't put me, we put us, you know, even when you don't want to be a Democrat or a Republican, you still labeled. Don't label
And that's all part of it too. That's all part of it too. They make you pick sides, and then you fight each other, and that's in so many different avenues.
Yes.
Crazy. And this is actually gonna go into my next question, which is, you were never just a shooter. You always stood for something. So how did your values shape your transition beyond the league?
I think more than anything, just knowing going in, it's only going to be a certain period of time. You know what I'm saying? That going into the league, actually, I came in the league on what is called a make good contract. So I wasn't guaranteed for the first 3 years until Christmas Day. I had to be on the roster Christmas Day in order to be a guarantee that your money was guaranteed for the rest of the season. A lot of people don't know the inner workings of that. But anyway, I didn't ever take it for granted that I was going to be an NBA player. I studied, like I said, I studied Black studies, so I was going to go teach history. If I didn't get to play my first year, I was going to go back to school, study a little bit more, come back and try it again. If I didn't make it the second time, I was going to go and teach history at home. That was my mindset. So I only wanted to play. Literally in my little bitty mind, I thought when I was sitting in my dorm in college, I want to play at least 5 years in the league. That was because I knew at that point in time I would have a pension coming from it. You know what I'm saying? So I never looked at the NBA as being the end all of what my career, I never really, and even when we talk about NBA, I don't look at that as a career really. I was still playing. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't really register to me that when I got finished playing basketball, I was just going to do nothing. It wasn't my mindset when I was playing. I tell people when I look at the numbers that Steph, MJ, Isaiah, that y'all was putting up, I get it. And I know that had I just been focused on basketball and not focused on the societal issues, I could have put up 30s. But I was thinking in my mindset, I would go in the locker room and I would just read something and I was still on what I just read about something in the society and then go hoop and do my thing. But that was still, man, this taxation thing, these murders, our babies, you know what I'm saying? Not just how many can I get? How many endorsements can I get? Then being around that and seeing how little concern we have when we're in the moment of our superstardom, how little we care about those things that when we were coming through it, if I ever make it, I'm going to do something about this or that. But now when we make it, it becomes a whole nother avenue of opportunities. And before you know it, you can be in the league 12 years, those opportunities for you and your family, awesome. But what impact could we have made with those same opportunities within our communities? You know what I'm saying? When I look at when we go on these championship runs, certain coaches have certain, we're going to come up with this book. This book is going to carry us through the championship. And we'll read chapter by chapter by chapter, and we get to the end of it. And when you look at, when I look at what Phil put in front of us as a texture for going to a championship, different books that he put in front of us. Then I'm hearing when Boston won their championship and Doc Rivers came to them with Ubuntu, okay? And then I'm like, wow, okay, let's take that outside of the arena now. You know what I'm saying? But it's one of those things where, oh, this is great. This is what, man, yeah, it's love and it's camaraderie towards a championship. But let's take the root of the principle. It's societal. So we can take that from outside of the Boston Celtics into the community? Of course we could. But what type of confrontation you gonna get? And as far as is it gonna cut into your salary? Is it gonna cut into your leagues, the number of years in the league? Is it gonna cut off endorsement deals? So when Kanye says something, let's strip him of everything he gets, so won't nobody else of any type of magnitude say nothing else about Jewish interests compared to Black interests. You feel me? And it's funny to me when we stop and we really look at it that, the fear factor, the fear of sin is incredible to me when I'm looking at us who are from a warrior DNA, that we are so servile when it comes to just speaking up about issues that we know genocide. We can't say genocide. We can't even say the word. Can't say the word. You feel me? When America started on genocide, my people was genocided. Native Americans were genocided. And we talk about going home. Go home? Who should go home? Let's have some Native
Crazy.
Americans. Let's have some Native
Crazy.
Americans. Let's ask them who should go home. Because you want to ask everybody else when, come on, man. And that's where we are today, is that I think, and the cool part is that the generation that's 18 to 25, they own it. They're seeing right through, but they're seeing through it like in Chicago. I look at the young brothers and sisters here. They have these teen, they call them teen takeovers, okay? And
So you see that again, it cut out just when you started there.
It's called a teen takeover. So these young folks will text one another, social message or whatever, and they all show up 500, 600 deep, overrunning stuff. And I'm saying the organizational value in that is off the chain. But now how do we get that and bring it to a positive to make it a movement, as opposed to it being, oh, these young folks is crazy. And the crazy part is people who are my age, I'm 65. The majority of people anywhere between 50 and 70, they are afraid of young Black people, afraid of them. Don't know how to communicate with them. Their slang and the way they talk is so far removed that we don't be afraid of them. We don't want to deal with them. Somebody deal with that. And what they've come to the point of saying, you know what? We can do whatever we want to. Can't nobody tell us what to do. And this is how we're going to handle it. And it's groups of them like that. And what can we say? We can. It's amazing to me, just the organizational part of it. And how do we cultivate that into positivity and love and peace, as opposed to it being violence? How can I get my young brothers and sisters to realize that when you pick up a gun, it's a spirit in that. And that spirit ain't necessarily got to touch you, but it can touch somebody much closer to you, whether it be your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your auntie. So let's be mindful that we don't make these weapons, we don't produce these drugs, but it's part and parcel of our communities. But it's choices that we can make to say, we're done with that.
So at this point in your life, obviously winning championships in your 20s and 30s, that's kind of what defines success for most people that have that life mentality. But what do you feel now, with all your experience, truly defines what success is now?
Once again, starting in the clear, man. My sons, my grandbabies. You know what I'm saying? Seeing that, and that's the cool part of watching my boys now, the consciousness. And to see the growth of their maturity and the way they see in the world and with the impact that they can make. And seeing that both my oldest sons are basketball coaches and working with young people and seeing them work with young people and seeing the impact and how much love these young people are showing my sons from just the energy that they're giving. That's to me is where we're going right now, is the ability for us to be able to touch that next generation in a way where they utilize us. They're utilizing Craig Hodges as a resource, like an encyclopedia. Use me as an encyclopedia for basketball, social issues. But we have to be present in that, and being able to be present and around young people and being able to be open for the questions that they have. And one thing that, I go to a camp and you'll ask, do anybody have any questions? And won't no one raise their hand or whatever because they're nervous or scared. It might be a silly question. And that's the part where we have to get our young folks to understand that when we question and ask questions, it's only going to make us stronger and more confident in where we're standing.
So what would you tell these young athletes who are building their whole identity around the game and haven't thought about who they are beyond it yet?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part is regardless to where you at culturally or what your nationality is, should I say, that the historical relevance of that compacted with your sport, I think is so critical, that to know who you are, where you're from, gives you an idea of what you're capable of doing and what's necessary. How do you carry? And I think that's the cool part for me when I was studying at Long Beach State, was knowing that what I'm studying is impacting not only me, but it's going to impact the next generation, because the more of us that study this, the more it can become a conversational piece, that it's not a novelty issue. It's not a, oh, look what I found. No, it's got to be our history is as important as any part of American culture. And that's the part that has been once again canceled, and they still canceling it, which is weird to me when you stop and you think about the historical relevance of what America has meant, what African Americans as well as Native Americans in the first point. The land itself is so critical. So for me, it's just a realization that as a young athlete or a young person, the world is yours. Now it's a matter of you realizing what your mission is, being able to find your passion early. I think that's the part that more than anything else, you're not gonna find it if you don't have mentors. And I think that's the biggest part for me, was to have mentors. My granddad gave me all the catcher's gear on my 6th birthday and told me the quickest way to the big show to be a pro was to be a baseball player. So I played baseball for 14 years, and then my jumper became playing. So it became a different sport, but it was always a mindset that, sport could help advance what you want to do, but know that the most critical part is your ability to read, write, and study and articulate your position.
I think that is the perfect way to end it. Thank you so much for taking the time. This
Blessings on blessings.
Because it's bigger than basketball at the end of the day.
No doubt.
It should just be like a guide to get to those positions. And I think that's why I really respect like Kyrie and people that say,
Yes.
I'm true to myself, even if it doesn't fit what you want. So
you play basketball, right?
I did, yes. And I coach right now too.
Raise that right hand. Raise your right hand up.
I'm a lefty.
I know, but raise your right hand. Now, see that baby finger?
Yeah.
Finger? That told me you was a hooper. When I seen you raise your finger, I was like, yeah. we all got them.
Yeah, jammed up, man. Oh man,
Yeah,
the things that
yeah.
people's fingers.
Yes.
Hilarious. Thank you again.